Now, we always appreciate the fact that we don't just broadcast to people in along Mombasa Road in Nairobi, or people in Nairobi, or people in the Republic of Kenya alone. We speak to people all over the globe, whether they are Kenyans or not. And in fact, we like it because very many Kenyans who are outside of the country follow this show at various times of the day, whenever they find some time. There are very many people who are in the diaspora. More than 4 million Kenyans are out there somewhere, starting with Uganda, to Somalia, to Tanzania, South Sudan. What are those other countries that neighbor Kenya? Tanzania, I've said.
You said so. Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, Rwanda.
Well, neighboring. You didn't ask next to.
I said bordering.
Bordering, then South Sudan.
Okay.
And the Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean.
People in the Indian Ocean, yeah.
Yes. All of them. Now, there's something about the right to vote. The Constitution gives it as a right for every Kenyan to participate in electing their leaders and mandates Parliament to enact legislation that will enable accessible voting for all, including those residing outside of the country. So far, there are only 10,503 registered diaspora voters. Out of those 4 million people that we talked about, only 10,000 of them are registered as voters. And one of the people who has been really pushing this issue of diasporans and voting and participating in matters of governance in this country is Danson Mukile. Danson lives in the United States of America. Where?
Dallas, Texas.
Okay, yes. And he keeps coming here and going back home. Hasa, for example, amekuja Royco imeisha, amekuja kuchukua Royco, unga ugali,
sukuma wiki,
majani chai, sausage ya Kenya, sausage ya Kenya, na sambusa. Arudi nayo America to restock. Karibu sana Danson.
Asante.
Good to see you here.
Thank you so much, Latiff. It's good to see you.
How's it been out there?
It's been good. Working as usual, sending money back home. We are now clocking at 650 billion.
What?
Kenya shillings.
Per year?
Yep.
Actually, just like Dr. Abraham was saying, this is actually, it's more than the domestic borrowing.
Yes.
It's double the domestic borrowing.
Yes.
600 billion shillings.
We do not need to borrow.
We don't need to borrow.
No, we don't.
We can actually pay the salaries of the whole government. The 650 is almost closer to the wage bill.
Where?
Yeah.
How does this money come into Kenya?
It comes through supporting families, school. Like I have my cousins, nephews pay school fees. We also invest directly in our businesses. Like I have a startup IT company, so we pay taxes as well. So there's many ways people bring money here, but we've been having a lot of issues with it. Is it an NSSF? Is it, there has been a lot of conversation. Even the parliament has not really classified diaspora remittance is under which category. We just call it remittance.
We just call it remittance.
Yeah, there's no law at the moment.
Okay.
So they've been trying to juggle around. They're talking about the remittance tax, things like that. Yeah.
Oh, they want a bit of tax from that money that's coming in.
I think I've seen the CS. They're really looking for ways to. Yeah.
Karibu sana. Siti, please welcome Danson with the day's proverb.
Yes.
Yeah, Danson, as you know, now that you're in Africa, what we do in Africa is proverbs. Okay?
Yes.
And Siti has now been in south of Sahara, north of the Limpopo.
Yes, and we are in the Republic of Burundi. A very interesting country. Has a very tumultuous past. Yes. The proverb. This proverb brought issues in the morning. At least now it's warmer. It should bring less issues. Do not look up a tree that you know you are not supposed to climb.
Do not look up a tree that you know you are not supposed to climb.
I think I would say if you know that this particular task, you can't do it, just don't try, because you may end up failing. Yeah, I think Kiswahili, if we are to do in Kiswahili, I think there's an interpretation in Kiswahili, but I would say if you can't do a certain task, just don't force yourself, because ukijaribu kumuiga tembo kunya utapasuka msamba.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. Okay. Now, we've had several conversations with you, whether it's virtually or with you here in studio, and particularly around the election time, on mobilizing Kenyans to participate in the election, to participate in matters of the election before the election itself, and thinking, so we are seeing these are the candidates, what kind of leader would we like as Kenyans, whether we're in the country or not? What kind of leadership would we like in this country? And then how many are going to actually be able to participate in electing their leaders? The law currently says that those in the diaspora can only participate in electing the president, right?
It's actually a regulation. It's an IBC regulation. And we have the petition 25 of the Supreme Court 2014. IBC was fighting it, so it accepted, say it will do progressively. Say, let's start with the president, then you can go to the governor, then you can go to the MP. But as it is, it's just still the president.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the people in the diaspora would like to participate in all the 6 elections.
Yes, they will want to participate.
Whether you're in Texas, you want to participate in electing your MCA, your governor, your MP, your woman rep, your senator, all the way to president.
Yes.
Okay.
Because these people, they live in our constituents, right? And these members of parliament, the decisions they're making in the parliament, they're actually affecting directly our families in our constituencies. So having a right to choose them as well, it will have an impact, so that it can be like, I'll have an opportunity to listen to the people who are living outside the country as well as inside the country, because to me, to be honest, even we should not be having this parliament at all. They have really failed. Yeah. Failed.
Does the law then also restrict, if you're a Kenyan with dual citizenship, can you participate in these elections?
Yes.
Can you participate in American elections?
Yes.
Where? So you're choosing a president for America and choosing a president for us?
I pay taxes as well.
That's a good thing.
In both countries.
That's a good thing. In fact, why don't we introduce a law that allows you to have even 3 citizenships? Yeah. It was 1, now we're 2. Why not go take it to 3?
So as long as you're paying tax in that jurisdiction,
It's fine.
choose
Yes.
a leader in that
Choose.
jurisdiction.
Yes.
Makes sense to me.
But they have deliberately made sure that they defranchise the whole thing.
How so?
There's no law. As you read that particular section of the Constitution, the Parliament is supposed to enact a law for progressive registration and voting of the diaspora. But they have not done so. 14 years since 2010 Constitution was promulgated. 14 years they have not done it. So that's why I felt that I talked to some of the people in the diaspora and we came together and you say, why can't you just read the law, find those specific areas that we feel we need to fill in? And that is why we're coming up with the proposal to amend Elections Act 2011 so that we can anchor the diaspora inside the law.
So since 2010 Constitution, you said they've not done it. What is it? Nothing at all as concerns diaspora involvement?
Nothing.
When you say it has not been done, what has not been done?
There has not been any proposal in Parliament towards this. The only thing that has saved us is the judiciary. We have been going to court. The diasporians have been going to court. Then you get a court order telling IBC do this and this. But there has never been a law that now directs IBC that when it comes to the diaspora, this is how you're supposed to make sure that the right to vote has been accomplished. So that has been an issue, and tumeanza mapema. We want to fix this thing early so that we get closer to 2027, you don't defranchise majority of the Kenyans in the diaspora.
But there's something I find interesting here with your proposed bill, where you suggest that 2 seats might or won't be allocated to the diaspora through party nominations in the general election. Good suggestion. How exactly, once you are, the nomination bit it's not confusing, it's simple. And then once you are nominated, then what?
Nominated where first?
In the Parliament and also the Senate and the Counter Assembly. So there has been an issue.
In all legislative assemblies,
yes,
you want diaspora representation?
Yes.
Okay.
At the moment, we don't have any. We have parliamentarians who are ex-diasporians.
Yeah.
But when I try to talk to them, they're like, I'm concentrating to my constituency.
I was elected,
Yeah. So still, we don't have a representation, no voice in Parliament. So our proposal, and That's why we propose, and people can also bring in their suggestion and how well it can be made. And yesterday we met with JLAC, and they also gave some feedback on it, including the LSK as well. Is a proposal, and it's a conversation that people really need to think about.
Mm-hmm.
If through nominations, through the political parties can give us a representative, then so be it. If through election, if we need to elect our own individual, which is we have to go to the stretch of amending the constitution through a referendum, which is, I don't think is we don't have a constitutional moment at the moment. The big boys, they are focused on something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm suggesting through nominations, then if we can go through, and that will include now amending the Elections Act, we want at least the diaspora be classified under the special groups that we have in the Constitution.
As minority marginalized.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a sensitive question. Sensitive in terms of hurting people's feelings, but it has been brought up over and over and over again. That why should folks who make the decision to leave Kenya for whatever reason, schooling, education, then make demands about governance and how things are run back home when you decided to go? It's a very popular question. I'm sure you've heard it many times. So then why is it important that folks who've decided to go and live and work somewhere else want to be involved in the decision making of what happens back home?
I've always told people, we don't choose where we are born, but you can choose where to live. You have a choice. Like you chose to be in Kenya. So we have chosen to live outside because of the situation that is here. But majority of Kenyans who live, and I've been telling people that if you look at the situation that made people to move in early 90s and 80s, mostly was political. The current one is not like that. People are looking for jobs and come back. If you look at the span of Kenyans, initially if a Kenyan will move abroad, you may stay there maybe 8 or more than 8 years before you can even hear anything. Si tulikuwa nasikia ango yetu fulani yako ngambo. But at the moment, in a span of 4 years or 5 years, you'll see this person still coming back. So there's been changes. And once they get comfortable, they come back. So we just want to be fair that as much as we are supporting our country in terms of governance, policy, and our remittance and investment, at least the demands you're putting ahead, they're justifiable.
I mean, I've just got a question to ask, and because it's a valid question, it keeps being asked all the time. The question is, if you were born in, say, Muranga, right, and you have moved to Busia, and you're voting in Busia, should you be asked why you're voting in Busia?
No. And Latiff on that.
Or even if you live in Busia, there are very many people who live in Nairobi, but they don't vote in Nairobi. They vote, they go back home to vote.
Many.
Yeah. So can the people in their shack say, unakuja hapa kupiga kura na hata uishi hapa?
Even our members of parliament, where do they live?
Si hapa tu hapa.
Nairobi, they spend much more time in Nairobi. But during elections, they go back to look for votes. So it's justified. It's a good question, but we really have a good justification that as much as we live abroad, we need to have that voice.
It's important to put it out there, and always as a response to those questions that do come. In terms of numbers, because then one would want to imagine why a legislative body like Parliament then for 13, 14 years has not done anything about this, like you talk about. So what would be the challenge in your opinion? Is it just nonchalance? Okay, it doesn't really. What would be the challenge that it has kept coming and coming? The president was in Germany with entire departments just a few months ago, and this issue came up. It was mentioned. The town hall that was had in Germany, and folks were saying, okay, what happens about voting? What are we going to do in terms of nominations for representatives here in the diaspora? It happened last year when there was again travel, when there were talks about the diaspora and their remittances. We hear all the time in terms of conversations that are coming up when we speak with PS Rosenjogu. Those questions keep coming. So why do you think that there has been no action to the constant talk?
One of the main thing is data. Actually, I would say the government of Kenya doesn't know the exact number of Kenyans that live in
out
the
there.
diaspora. Even today, we were to meet the president and ask him, Mr. President, how many are we in the diaspora as Kenyans? He'll give you an estimate figure. Because the government hasn't given the Kenyans in the diaspora trust to give their information. They will come to us, right, asking us to give information, not involving us. For instance, if you come to Dallas, leaders are known in Dallas. If you talk to those leaders and say, I really want to know how many Kenyans live in Dallas, they'll do that job for you. But if as a government officer come to Dallas and tell them, guys, come here, I want to know how many are you, they will not.
Why
So,
not?
because they don't trust the data, the information that you're going to give the government.
What do you
We
fear?
don't know. Some people, when you go to the diaspora, Latiff, situation happen, and you want to go underground to fix your situation fast, right? So you feel exposing your data.
So
at
you
that
think the
particular
government
time.
will snitch?
Yeah.
On what?
See, and tell the host government that you're there.
Yeah.
And
You know,
your
this
sit-
documentation-
your
But
si-
if
your
there is,
situationship.
so there could be an issue with the
You're staying in
documentation.
ship. Yes. And,
I
and you want to
see.
So the trust issue. But for us, even for me, I know people maybe who don't have the documentation, but I don't bother. They are
Yeah.
friends. We
Yeah.
work together. They are supporting their family.
Yeah. What does the government need to do to build that trust?
Bring diaspora on the table. And this,
But they're not coming.
on the table.
Yeah.
These are some of the
because
things
they don't
that
want to
come-
be known that they're there.
These
If we
are
say
some of the things.
Kenyans in Texas, please come. Not all Kenyans in Texas are going to come. Because there's some Kenyans that don't want the government to know that they're there.
But under which structure? You know, we need to have a structure. Diaspora is a very volatile and very political people. So when you want to engage them, first of all, engage their leaders. That is where the government has failed. Engage them. And when you go to the leaders, don't maybe focus on this particular group. Just anyone.
Don't divide and
Don't
rule.
divide them. We have religious leaders. We have political. We have those who are doing investment. We have just bring them together and ask them that I want you guys to do this and this. And in return, we are passing your laws. Whatever you're asking us, you're going to do it. Because they don't feel that there's something they're getting back as much as they are doing all this.
Okay.
And we are asking the basic principle. Can you help us to vote? Can you make sure that people in Dallas don't need to travel 23 hours to Washington, D.C. to vote?
To cast their ballot.
It's unfair.
So, okay. Right now, we have regulations that mandate the IEBC to register Kenyans in the diaspora so they can participate in the presidential election.
Yes.
Right? Only about 10,000 have registered so far out of a possible population of 4 million.
Yeah.
Why the 10,000? Why not 20? Why not 100,000? Why not a million?
So there has been a lot of issues on IBC. It looks like it's only the court that has forced IBC to be doing some of these things. If you look at the 2022 election, of which I was highly involved, there were some issues. Like, for instance, during registration, we are given approximately 10 days. Someone has children, is working 24, picking 3 shifts in a 14 days. How do you expect that person to change his schedule to come and register as a voter?
And how is the registration happening? Physical?
Yeah, physical.
You've got to go to a certain office.
Washington, D.C., for instance, or go to Berlin. Someone in Belgium has to go all the way to Berlin.
And it's a 10-day window.
Yep.
Justification by IEBC? No money.
Capacity and resources. And that's what we're telling. We have a solution for them. We say, involve the diaspora. Come up with a program, maybe you say voluntary program. We just did the U.S. election, and many Kenyans were actually, and congratulations to our lady in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we volunteer ourselves. So if you come to us and say, we are IBC, we want you guys to help us to do registration, people will sign up. They will participate. But if you want to take people from here in Kenya, get visas, get them the hotel, get them the cars, rent the car,
per diem,
per diem. That's expensive. But if it's me, I'll just get my car, drive to or maybe one of the stations, let's say the church in Atlanta, Bishop, then
set up out there.
Set up a hema kidogo, Wakenya wanakuja, I register them.
Okay. Easy. So one would expect, or one would assume that the numbers that we see, whether it's numbers in terms of population, I mean, you mentioned 70,000 strong Kenyan population in Dallas alone.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at other major cities where a lot of Kenyans go to, Minnesota, Washington, in Seattle, you're looking at Atlanta, huge populations. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Kenyans in the US.
Yeah.
So those numbers, significant. 650 billion shillings every year in remittances, significant number. I mean, we talk about not having to borrow if that money was now seen. So we're looking at significant numbers. We're looking at significant spheres of influence. So then one must ask, why is it not prioritized? Because for me, it's an issue of priority. If you took those numbers and they were able to equate to significant change, right? Whether it was now that you had a whole bunch of people who were at the table and they were saying, you know what? We're going to insist now that our money comes back to Kenya in order to do 1, 2, 3. And we're going to see how now this can be formalized, right? You can't have a conversation with folks that you're not putting on the table about their money and about their numbers.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying. But at the same time, I feel as though it is not prioritized. We see government doing things and we see them doing things that they have prioritized.
Yeah.
So I think the question here is, what is it going to take for the diaspora agenda to be prioritized by governments? What's it going to take?
I think we have started the conversation. If you can look at the amendment you are suggesting, we are saying this is our priority. And to be honest, this week you are meeting almost all of them, including the political leaders, and you are telling them this is a priority. We are going to marshal our numbers, our people, and to be honest, if they are not very careful in 2027, if there will be any deciding vote like the one we had in last election in the US, Diaspora will do.
It will.
We may decide, yes, even if they're giving us that limited access, we can mobilize ourselves and say enough is enough. Because they are not prioritizing our things. They are doing what they want, especially looking for money. And to be honest, you have seen the president is now he's the one who advertises jobs. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like when you go somewhere and mostly unskilled. The president is supposed to be actually just giving directions on what is supposed to be implemented. But now when you come that we are not utilizing the diaspora effectively on these opportunities and looking at some of the red flags, when you're negotiating for the labor migration agreements, you are not involving the diasporian themselves. And to be honest, most people were so annoyed in the diaspora because they felt they were left out when they are doing these negotiations. When you come to the US and you want to bring nurses to Texas, for instance, if you use Kenyans who live in Texas in the negotiations, you may strike a bigger deal. But if you want to do it on your own, we know how Americans think. We know how the Germans think. We know how. So that has been also an issue. And we are hoping there could be some changes that the diasporans are brought on the table in every conversation. Because we are the taxpayers.
Controls here. We are hosting Danson Mukile, who is a diaspora affairs strategist and leader. He and a few others, and he'll tell us how many, have a proposal to amend the Elections Act so that we can allow more and more Kenyans to participate in elections. Out in the last election of 2022, out of 66 missions that Kenya has globally, only 12 countries participated in an election, 18 polling centers, 10,503 Kenyans voted. 10,503 Kenyans are registered as voters.
6,000 voted.
Only 6,241 voted. That's about a 59.4% turnout of voters. So what is it that can be done to then have more and more Kenyans who are in the diaspora? And diaspora is from next door here, Tanzania, going all the way to Papua New Guinea, right? And making sure that all of them can participate in choosing their leaders in this country. So can Kenyans participate in the 2027 election? More and more Kenyans who are out there in the diaspora, can they participate? According to government's own estimates, and this is, we are quoting the Principal Secretary for Diaspora Affairs, Rosalind Jogu, says around 4 million Kenyans are out there, okay? So the ones that the government actually knows about, knows about a certain number, and the ones that the government estimates are out there are about 4 million. Only 10,000 of them are registered as voters. And of the 12 countries that participated in the general election, there were very many challenges that happened then. And now you and other Kenyans have come together and said, let's come up with proposals on how this can then be sorted out. Question number one, though, when I talk about diaspora, you guys are not homogenous. I mean, there are different people who've gone there in different time zones. They're living in different countries, and their motivation for being out there are completely different. Just like those who are in Kenya. There's nothing different about that, right? But then, even among diaspora leaders, do you speak the same language?
No.
Like I would ask you, how many diaspora leaders have participated in drafting this proposal?
We don't speak the same language. Because I've tried this. I think this is one of the group that actually have tried to put diaspora leaders involved, because for a long time there have been always supremacy and who is leading which organization. They will register an organization, have them, getting some support. It hasn't been an agenda for the diaspora per se, but it was more of a certain region. So if the UK or the Europe team comes up with an organization, maybe for the diaspora, then the US team will be like, you're near UK.
That's Europe.
Yeah. So, but this one I've tried. I didn't do it 100% because it was more of drafting. Hasn't gone to the public participation yet, just putting the ideas together. So we are about 90 leaders spread across the world. And out of which they have really shared a lot of insights and making this draft to be the way it is at the moment. But once now, yesterday we gave it to the jailer committee and they're going to look into it, and they have given us good feedback. So once they resume next year, I think they're going for long races in February. So they come back in February. We'll be having a follow-up conversation with them. If it goes to the floor of the House and now it goes to public participation, it will now be a whole diaspora to be involved, because it's so hard to do drafting a bill with 1 million or 10 million or
involving everyone.
It's you can't even come up with a sentence.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've really tried. I know some are not happy as always, but as a leader, you have to make some hard decision.
On this matter of representation, the country you now live in, remember, that was the clarion call for their independence. No taxation without
representation.
Exactly. Now, here we are with fellow Kenyans in the diaspora. Let's say the nomination that you seek is granted. Have you figured out how this will work? I mean, you have a representative, say, in Europe, a representative in North America, a representative in South America, etc., etc.
Yeah, so it's a bigger issue that is the governance structure of the diaspora. At the moment, we don't have a single governance structure. There has been an attempt to do an umbrella organization in the diaspora to have a single voice. It has not worked.
But why do you want a single voice?
Not like at least the majority. For us, we have issues in the diaspora that are common across, like the right to vote. It's an issue that's spread across the diaspora.
Yes.
When it comes to social welfare, it's an issue that's spread across the diaspora. Then we have those specific targets, the issues that American diaspora goes through is a bit different from the Middle East. So they are segmented in that form. So, yeah.
Let me ask the question. Would you say, for instance, the Kenyans in the American diaspora are a homogeneous group? The answer will be no.
No.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure the same will be said of Europe, the same will be said of the Middle East. The question I'm asking is it possible to get an acceptable form of homogeneity so that these are things we agree on, these are things which we allow those in Texas wafanye, hiyo ni yao. Those in the South wafanye, wherever it is wafanye, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because if you are asking for representation and that commonality is absent, even if it is granted to you, that's why I asked the question, how will it work?
So, as we are doing the proposal for the legislation, we are actually is still work in progress on that as well, and it will come all the way back to the coming up with the diaspora, like a structure. We are suggesting maybe a council or a board, but through a legislation, of course. So that one, it kind of now segment those specific issues in specific region. But for the nomination, it's purely political because some diasporians, they're not interested in politics at all. Some are just focused on investment.
Are they? Yes, but they're interested in being represented. Is that not so?
Yeah, they will.
You see, my point is, your ask should be accompanied by a suggestion or a proposal of a structure that would work. It makes it easier because the one can then see a roadmap and see what you want, it will end up there. But right now, it is actually up in the air.
But Siti, if you say political parties to nominate 2 people from the diaspora, that's the same way as we've said, political parties to nominate 2 people representing youth and persons with disability.
Yes.
Because beyond that, then you don't start saying, oh, this person with disability must be rotating across the counties. It's the parties now to decide their own internal mechanism for putting together their list of nominees. Like now, when we say political parties in the Senate are supposed to nominate people who will be senators representing women, youth. It's the parties to decide.
It is.
And we end up with the various senators who have been nominated.
So we do.
If I was to give you a suggestion, we gave the UDA party. So there was a certain structure of how they are supposed to have the diaspora leaders in their party, including having chapters across the world, different diaspora chapters. Then those chapters have leaders. Then the leaders now in specific chapters come together to form a specific region. Then that particular region, they come together to form the whole diaspora leadership of the party. So that specific structure, it can be used while they'll be selecting or nominating someone to be nominated through the UDA party. Another ODM can do a different approach. But my idea is at least we have a representative who we can hold to account or send to Parliament and speak on our behalf.
I think that now the other challenge will come whether that person is speaking on their behalf. All right? Right now, those who have been nominated to Parliament to represent the youth, there are many people who in the youth category would say, someone doesn't even speak on our behalf. People have elected people, and not to represent matters of women, but just because of the issue of balancing the numbers in Parliament. We have a position called woman representative, not women's representative. It's a woman representative. That's the title of that position. But you hear, every time a woman stands up to speak, it'll always be there.
Satisfying Kenyans is a hard thing.
How do you propose to, just like coming into cities area, how do you propose to actually see that then there's a proper balance, that the person who's nominated from diaspora is, people will feel that they represent them, or there shall be a level of accountability
so in
the beyond the nomination?
In the bill itself, we have given a certain criteria of who this thinks he or she must have. So we have also highlighted the specifics, including because we have diasporians, they live in Kenya, maybe they went to South Sudan, stayed there a few months, they came back. They may not qualify to be, they are not supposed to qualify.
They're not currently resident abroad.
Yeah, they're not currently. So there's certain criteria that we have set up as well. So we make sure that whoever will be selected, number one, is a person known in the community. Yeah? By that, there's some advocacy has been doing, and there's evidence to attach to that.
Okay.
That this person has been doing 1, 2, 3 in the diaspora.
Okay.
If there's any something that maybe has wrong reputation, I think the diaspora can try as much. I know changing the Parliament of Kenya is so hard, but if we can start the diaspora doing things in a clear and structured manner, it may have an impact in our democracy.
That is going to be very difficult if the diaspora or the Kenyans who live in the diaspora cannot find a way of finding commonality. Because again, even when the selections are made, the voices that will oppose it, the same thing we keep talking about will occur. I don't think it is an impossibility for you to find a commonality. It's not. Because there's certain interests that unite literally all the Kenyans who are abroad.
Yeah.
Now you start with the things that unite you. And then you work along those ways. Because as it is now, as somebody who lives in Kenya, I look at what the PS in charge of diaspora does. That lady does a sterling job.
She's been doing well.
My friend, if there was a ministry that could be dedicated to the diaspora, if you consider just the amount of money they generate, that lady would represent the diaspora very well, because she, as you say, gets it.
Yeah.
She understands it. Now, she can't be the only one. There are other like-minded people who would serve your interests well. Now, you have to go about this particular matter and go beyond seeking to have a representation in parliament and ask, what other representation do you need to have that could be effective? Because what you're seeking to have is what is effective. You send someone to parliament, this particular parliament, this one.
It'll be the next one, not this one.
Yeah. So actually, as you say, the PS, she has really been trying, and with very low budget. Unfortunately, even having a diaspora conference this year is not possible because she doesn't. There's no budget.
You guys, you mchanga mfanya kitu.
650 million sutoto.
No, you see, when government is doing these things, there's a lot of cartels. They want to cut corners here and there, and she's standing firm and say, no.
Leave government alone. All of you come and say, all right, so this is how we shall create a side thing that can do a diaspora conference when we shall invite the government.
We always try.
Okay.
The diaspora always try. But as you say, there's always infights. The person who is driving that agenda is normally the issue, that specific conference.
I want to come to this issue of, leadership of caucuses, right?
Yeah.
So I remember a conversation that we had, I believe it was late last year or early this year, and we're having this diaspora conversation. There are leaders in the UK, there are leaders in Germany, there are leaders in Australia. I believe the other country was New Zealand. There was, of course, for the US. And I believe we had a South Africa conversation as well. There was one other country I can't remember.
East Africa as well.
Yeah, there was one other I can't hear. But what struck me was that there are individuals who are representatives, at the very least, from each of these countries. There are individuals who represent and are known to others, because I think often the temptation is to say that, Kenyan diaspora is in the US, but it's not. It's across the world, and it's Saudi Arabia. So there's Saudi Arabia as well. And then you ask, is it possible for the leaders who are recognized in the diaspora in all of these countries to form a caucus of their own, so that without, having to scratch your head and wonder, okay, so who's the person that has to deal with this? You wake up in the middle of the night, somebody asks you, who's the person for the UK? You go, you know who that person is. The same way you know who your member of parliament is for, wherever. You know who that person is. So it sounds like that could be the issue, that people don't know that, okay, this is the person. But we know, I believe we know who they are in these countries. So what stops it, if we're looking at levels now, to say, okay, there's no representation at parliament, but if we can come back and say, can these representatives who are known form a caucus, and then from there, these conversations start to move forward, as opposed to one person trying to do this and then backtracking and saying, okay, this is where we are. Is there no room for such a thing?
Thank you for one of the hardest questions for the diasporan is to unite those leaders.
It's hard to unite the leaders.
It's
okay.
very hard. They will come together, discuss, but maintaining the momentum is a hard call. Because some of them, we develop specific interests.
Yeah,
just the way we have in Kenya.
Yeah.
Maybe this one is getting mileage in the political space. This one is getting some mileage in the investment space. Then they start now fighting. There has been there. Even as we speak today, if you go to US, Europe, and even South Africa, kila mtu ni kiongozi. The diaspora, like almost everyone in the diaspora, is a leader in a specific.
Yes.
And he wants also to appear as a leader whenever they. So uniting these leaders has been a problem, and even PS will tell you, handling diaspora, it's hard. Yeah, because you're dealing with people who they have their own jobs, they are comfortable, they just talk to you. They are not expecting you to give them money.
So isn't that the challenge then?
Yeah,
that is the challenge.
The main challenge.
It's on the diaspora side. If you're not able to coalesce around a particular issue, how then will you come to Parliament and say, okay, well, this is one united voice. We want 1, 2, 3. When it's clearly evident that you're not able to unite.
The leaders in the diaspora.
Yeah.
Unless they unite them, and that's why even when we talk to some of the politicians here, they don't take the diaspora so serious because they see how we fight each other. So in the social media, we go to express, we're just talking on each other.
You take all these bad traits we have in Kenya and you export them.
Yeah, Mkenya ni Mkenya.
You broadcast them across the globe.
Yes,
this
is how we go about our business.
But I thought actually, I don't see a need for even you being united. There's no need. In this country of ours, go to pick a constituency, Dagoretti South, all right? There's one guy in parliament, his name is KJ, but not everybody listens to KJ and agrees with KJ. It doesn't have to be. Once somebody, let's say, has let's say, the political parties are all mandated, and I like that idea, mandate them, let us have somebody representation of diaspora in the National Assembly. Let's say that every political party then will have at least 2 of its in the list of nominees to be someone from the diaspora. And I like the other idea. Then they'll come in with their credentials. Yeah. And that should also actually just go across everybody who's being nominated. This person is youth. This is why we are nominating them. They have done this, and the other, and we believe that they have value. Once that person becomes a member of the National Assembly, they then are accountable to the people of Kenya across the globe, including those in the diaspora.
Yes.
They should champion for what is in the best interest of the people in the diaspora. I don't know who in the diaspora, for example, will come and say that, no, do not allocate money to IEBC so that you can register more Kenyans, or don't allocate money to IEBC so that we can have electronic voting for people in the diaspora. Yeah. I don't see who would argue against that. I don't see who would argue against talking about how can we harmonize or encourage more Kenyans to actually send money back home, because the remittances are good for this country in what they do, whatever, this and the other, or haven't. Who'd be arguing against that? And if those that argue against it, that is fine. That is a whole issue of democracy.
Yeah.
Let them argue, let them propose something better. Yeah. If there's something better, let this leader accept there's another better idea.
And that's how I was telling them that, yes, we have this proposal. If you see it is not nice, counter it with another one. Then let's weigh in and see which one is viable. Because there are some things, if you overstretch, the parliamentarians, the ones we have at the moment, they'll just be like, take it to trash. That's what they'll do. So we have been avoiding a lot of going deeper into the constitution amendment in our proposal as much as we want to, so that at least this one goes through. And I would say if it goes through, it will be the first time actually that a diaspora-led initiative has actually passed in Parliament. There has never been none.
So incremental gains.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have put together your proposal. It's in a presentation. You're saying you met with the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly yesterday. You have, who else have you met? You've met the Law Society of Kenya.
LSK.
Okay. What are you doing with them? What do you
They're stakeholders in this conversation. JLAC, of course, is the one mandated to look at the elections legislation. LSK is very critical when it comes to oversight of this, and Madam Faith yesterday said that she gave us some questions on it to reason through, especially our proposal on unique identifier for the diaspora voters and electronic voting. It's a whole conversation. So LSK is very critical in this, and in case they don't implement, LSK can help us even to sue them as well.
Okay.
So we'll be meeting.
So at this point, you're still in the drafting stage.
Yes.
It's a proposal.
It's a proposal.
You want input from the Law Society of Kenya. You want the members of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to look at it.
We'll be meeting IBC today as well.
IBC as well, asking them.
Yeah.
And then what? What are the steps?
So after we have engaged these stakeholders, of course, we cannot legislate it in Parliament. We leave it to the JLAC to now take the next step.
Do you want to draft a complete bill and take it to JLAC, or do you want to take a proposal and leave it to Parliament, a member of Parliament, to take it as a private member's bill? What is the route?
So
I want to get the route where it gets to first reading in the National Assembly.
Yes, so we looked at various ways on how this can go through. We can do the government sponsor through the majority leader, Kimani Ichung'wah. Then you said, what are the percentage chances? We gave it 45%, because government has different priorities at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe our legislation proposal may not be a priority for them.
Okay.
Then you said, get a private member to sponsor it. At what cost? Do you think this member will be influential across because this, election law in Parliament is very sensitive. Look at the current IBC.
Yep.
It's stuck.
Yep.
So we felt that JLAC, it could be a committee amendment bill. So the JLAC, through the chair, Mheshimiwa Murugara, can now introduce it to the Parliament as a committee. JLAC committee proposal or amendment bill.
Okay.
Of course, we have done the legwork, but we leave it to them. That one has higher chances going to the first reading than using these other existing. Another option is as a private citizen. And you can imagine our Parliament going in as Danson to take a bill to the Parliament. It will never
There's
see the
also
day.
something else you can consider. From March next year, there's a chance that you'll have one more member of the diaspora who has considerable influence in this country, Raila Odinga.
Yes.
If he becomes chairman of the AUC, he will be a member of the diaspora. You can use him, go through, Junaid Mohammed, like this, like that,
I will be going to see him, Baba. We are heading there to see him and wish him well for the AUC and to welcome him to the diaspora. Once we are hoping, we are praying for him to win, and we are hoping that he'll be able to whip his side as well. So we have those options. And we are praying that also Latiff and the team will support us on this, because we play a very critical role in this whole conversation.
You want Baba to be the chairman of diaspora in Addis Ababa?
Yeah. We are hoping we'll be able to set out a department for diaspora in the African Union, so that we can have a more structured engagement in AUC with the African diaspora. Yeah.
Okay. All the best. So we'll be following up on the progress that this is making as you go on, as you draft, as you come up with the draft, it's being subjected to public participation. Karibu tena.
Thank you so much.
And always grateful to you and other people in the diaspora who tune into the Situation Room.
Every day.
Every whatever
when
time.
I wake up, before I go, because when you guys start, it's normally 11 p.m. in Dallas. So before I go to sleep, I have to listen for 1 hour at least, based on the guests you have. So I have to tune in. Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good. So we've been having Danson Mukile, who is from the diaspora. He is a strategist and leader of diaspora affairs, Kenyan living there, with proposals on how to make sure that more and more Kenyans are able to participate in elections in the future.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.